This studio that you built here in your backyard, in your garden, you said you built that specifically to do Atmos mixes, or?
Well, my studio for the past 20 years was in the attic room, which of my house, which isn't ideal because sonically a ceiling like that isn't perfect. There's lots of studios like it, but so it just involves a lot more. It's a lot trickier to get an accurate sound. But I've got kids and they're twins, and they weren't sharing a room anymore, and I got kicked out. So my kid kicked me out of my studio. So yeah, I built this room, and Atmos for music was just starting, and I'd actually noticed that Stephen Wilson had just kitted his studio out with Atmos, and I thought, right, I'm not going to miss the boat, because I was quite late getting into 5.1, and I thought, right, now I'm going to start. And as you're building the studio, and the thing about Atmos, one of the big things you have I've got 4 in the roof, and they're quite challenging to if you haven't already got them, it's quite challenging to do that. You know, you've got to wire them in, and most people have them hanging. I've got recessed ones. So I thought, sod it, I'll just put them in. I don't know if I'll ever do any Atmos, but I'm going to put it in so it's ready. And then Dolby contacted me because they knew I was doing quite a lot of immersive spatial mixes for a lot of sort of mainly progressive rock bands. And they came down here and tuned the room and gave me loads of advice, and yeah,
oh,
really
wow.
lucky. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. So this is a Dolby tuned room.
Dolby certified tuned room.
Yeah.
And what kind of productions did you already do in here?
So I mean, the last one I did was the new Jethro Tull record.
Oh, wow.
Haken and Catatonia. And a lot, obviously, all the Pineapple Thief stuff is done in Atmos. And there's quite a few coming up as well that I can't mention, but it's really busy.
Well,
so it was definitely a good.
So that's a good business.
It was a good business, because I said to my mate, I won't mention his name, but I said, I'm going to set up for Atmos, and it's fairly expensive, because you've got to have, not only have you got to, I mean, there's 9 speakers, but that means you've got to have 9 channels of audio, and so it's quite a lot of stuff you've got to buy, invest in. He says, have you really thought about your return on investment, your ROI? And I said, no, I'm just doing it really because I've just got a hunch, and luckily it was the right thing to do, because I've had an awful lot of Atmos work, which I think in when you're a professional musician, it's good for your anxiety that you've got a diverse sort of range of stuff to do.
Good, it worked out.
Yeah.
The reason why we're sitting here in the first place is that you decided to actually work on a track of mine, which I'm eternally grateful for, because I love the Pineapple Thief stuff for ages, and my wife is also a big fan of the Pineapple
Always
Thief.
a good sign. Always a good sign.
It's always a good sign, as opposed to Porcupine Tree, which she doesn't like at all, because too many notes in too little time.
Good.
So so thanks for taking the time on also working on my track, which
it's been really good fun, really good.
The Wizard of Oz. And it's going to be hopefully released in 2024 as well. I'm not sure yet. How often do you get these inquiries from people you have no clue who they are and if they're any good? Yeah,
quite a few. I mean, a lot of bands now, try to do it themselves. But no, I do get quite a few. Some of them you just can't. You listen to and you think, well, I can't really do anything with that. But I mean, at the moment, I'm mixing an album from a band called Cyclo. They're from or some, I'm not entirely sure, they never told me, but a country in South America somewhere, all sung in Spanish. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. And there's a band from Ukraine, of all places, actually, who I'm doing. So yeah, they just get in contact, and it's all done remotely. You know, they just send me the session, and so it's really nice. It's a really nice thing to do. And there's such, and like I said, some of them you listen to and you think, well, look, I can't do anything with that. But there's an awful lot of really good stuff out there as well.
Thankfully, I've obviously fell in the second category.
Oh yes. Well, I mean, you've got some really obviously top-notch players on your track as well. So
yeah, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky with that. What was your first impression when you first listened to the track?
Well, one, like, it's in 5, so, but it's not, you wouldn't think, you know, it's not a kind of awkward 5. It's a flowing 5, which is actually really difficult to do. So that was the first impression. And the other one was that it does go through an awful lot of it, because in our genre, which you could, well, let's call it progressive rock for argument's sake. It's very easy to get lost down a technical rabbit hole, and this doesn't do that. Even though technically it goes through a lot. There's a lot
it does. It does.
But I wouldn't call it that sort of stereotypical progressive rock technical track, which turns off people like your wife.
I'm too little capable of technical stuff.
Yeah, that's probably good. And yeah, that's good. So it kind of flows. It really does flow. And for me personally, the more I worked on it, the more I loved it, because it's such a deep track. Again. Thing, but I could always just get the parts roughly. So when I first heard it, obviously there was no guitars, it was just drums, bass, and there's all the strings and your piano and your vocal, and that was it. So I had to use my sort of imagination to think, right, I know where this could go. So as the song came together, you know, it just... Yeah. So yeah, it's
the very first time you listened to it actually had guitars of my
other guitar player. Yeah, this was a long time ago. Yeah.
But then when I sent it to you, eventually I stripped that off to just get your head free and not be guided from anything else that's going on.
Yeah.
So that it's completely, let me put it, Soord ideas. Yeah.
Oh right. Yeah.
Bruce ideas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, and it was good, and the thing, like you said, the way I approached it was the first default idea that came into my head, I would just throw out, and then actually think to come in really from a left field perspective, you know, just something that you wouldn't normally think of doing. And that's generally how I work with all the stuff now.
Yeah, and that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
To say this is the common idea that everyone has, let's not do that.
Don't do that, yeah.
It started in 2015.
Blimey!
The very first idea, which was the staccato piano stuff, I was that might actually be older, but like in 2015, 2016, I really started doing it after having an encounter with a complete stranger on Facebook.
Right.
which it was after the refugee crisis in 2015, when all these false prophets started influencing people on social media with their hatred, basically, which created that dystopic thought of what if there is one social media guy creating a following so big that he could throw the world into chaos and mayhem again. So that was the basic idea, and then I rediscovered the track that I had sort of structured in 5. It was a very initial structure, and I thought I have to take this thing and turn it into a song, and that's when I started really to work on the structure and on the flow of it. And the original idea was staccato piano 8s, like in a Coldplay kind of mood.
Yeah, or Supertramp.
Or Supertramp. Yeah. And then I had this part in 5/8, and I thought, where do I go from here? And one of the thought was actually, what would Dave Matthews do? Yeah, he would go in a 6/8 in the chorus. And that's how it slowly developed and until it had the shape it has today.
Yeah,
and that's what I usually do. I try to come up with a structure, with a story, with the lyric, and once I have that demo, then really go to other musicians and say, "Can you work on this? Can you add this? Can you add that?"
Similar process. Yeah.
Similar. I think it's probably how everyone does it. Who's not a fixed band, who's really sitting in the rehearsal room and try to come up with ideas together.
Yeah.
Throwing stones at each other because they don't like the other's idea. But I'm really glad you liked it.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed working on it.
Yeah, and it's it was fine to spend a few hours today really sitting together and seeing what works in the song, what doesn't work in the song. And
well, that's the thing. Is nothing beats being in the same room.
Yeah,
nothing beats it.
Yeah, indeed. And really seeing what or listening what the song needs together. And say, this is a good idea. This is a bad idea. This works. This doesn't work.
Yeah,
really love that process. I mean, that's anyway my kind of thing. I like this puzzling process in the studio much more than everything else.
So that's what it is. It is
bringing something to life.
Yeah, I do really enjoy the mixing side of it as well. It's really good fun.
Yeah. Hopefully to be released in 2024. I already said that in 2021, in 2022, and in 2023.
Yeah, well, if it's not 24, then that'll be 10 years.
That's good. That'll be 10 years.
Yeah, if it's 25, then you'll hit 10 years
in the making. But it's gonna be several different versions with several musicians working on it without knowing from each other, to have different versions in the end. Like it's like with the whole social media hype, where people tell you stories from their perspective. And there might be a tiny little thing in that's true, and all the other stuff is made up. And that's what I wanted to do with this project, to have a musical representation of that. So this is the truth. This is what's in there. Make up your story around it with how you would do it. And so that's and once again, thanks for doing it, because that's going to be a brilliant version.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And that said, I need to do a video around that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need some money. I need to grow some money for that.
Yeah.
By the way, folks, there's a way you can help me growing some money for making that project, making that video for that project, and that is, you come to my Sting Illustrated show on August the 26th in Kino Mond und Sterne, the biggest open air cinema in Munich, and we're gonna do a brilliant show with the music of Sting and the Police and cartoons behind that. There will be a Munich-based comedian telling the stories, so it's gonna be an awesome show. And there's going to be some awesome musicians there. And if enough people come, I'm going to be able to afford the video. And if too little people come, too few people come. I'm gonna have to take a credit.
Don't even think about it.
I'm gonna walk to the bank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Just the same thing as you said with the tour, with the COVID tour.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'd say thank you for taking the time to having that conversation.
Pleasure.
To be in your studio here in beautiful Yeovil.
Beautiful, yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to the new stuff, the solo record.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
And the new Pineapple Thief record. And maybe let's once again listen to another song. Cheers, bye.
Just as shadows cast over our remains, with the wounded leaves still clinging on for dear life, for dear life, for dear life. Wish it away, wish that it will all be over. In the sweetest blend of the night, and I wish it away, wish that it will all be over. In the sweetest blend of the night, this light, the reddest glow. Barely time to dry those saddest eyes I know.